Dear viewers, the following stories are inspired by real events. However, the names of the characters have been changed to protect privacy. Story 1. White Shadow Under the Maple. Ben, whose real name was Ethan, went with his family to the New York State Maple Weekends Festival at a small farm near Syracuse in March 2017. The festival atmosphere was lively, with the sweet aroma of maple syrup filling the air, stalls selling all kinds of maple products, and the cheerful chatter of visitors. Ben, who enjoyed exploring quiet places, separated from his family and wandered towards the edge of the farm. He stopped under an old maple tree with wide-spreading branches, standing alone at the end of a vacant field. Suddenly, he noticed a young girl in a white dress standing near the base of the tree. She looked out of place amidst the bustling festival crowd. Her white dress seemed thin and slightly old-fashioned, and her long black hair flowed down her shoulders. Ben approached, intending to ask if she was lost. As he got closer, he noticed something odd about her. Her face was pale, and her sad eyes gazed into the distance. He called out softly, "Hello, are you all right?" The girl didn't answer, but simply turned her head to look at him. Her eyes were strangely cold, lacking the innocent sparkle of a child. Ben felt a chill run down his spine. He looked closer and realized the girl's skin seemed slightly translucent, and her thin white dress didn't seem to be moved by the gentle breeze blowing across the field. He tried to speak to her again, but she just raised a hand, her fingers thin and unnaturally long, and pointed towards a dense patch of woods at the end of the field. Then, a sudden gust of wind blew through, carrying the rustling of leaves, and the girl vanished right before his eyes. Ben stood frozen, feeling a chill despite the relatively mild weather. He tried to reassure himself, thinking he might have imagined it or that it was just a trick of the light. But the feeling of unease lingered. He decided to head towards the woods the girl had pointed to. He followed the edge of the field, looking for a trail. Soon, he found a small path, almost hidden by the undergrowth, leading into the forest. As he ventured deeper, the air grew colder and damper. Sunlight barely penetrated the thick canopy, and the sounds of the festival gradually faded away. Ben followed the winding path, a sense of inexplicable unease growing in his heart. He passed by decaying tree stumps, moss-covered rocks, and dry leaves rustling under his feet. Suddenly, he saw an old stone fence, and behind it was a small, desolate cemetery, hidden among the trees. Many of the tombstones had been worn away by time. The inscriptions on the stone faded. Ben stepped inside the cemetery, the cold feeling becoming more pronounced. He stopped before a grave that looked newer than the others. A small, faded photograph of a young girl in a white dress was attached to the headstone, looking very much like the girl he had seen under the maple tree. He leaned down to read the inscription, "Sarah Miller, 1905 to 1915. Rest in peace." A cold wind swept through the cemetery, carrying a faint whisper that called his name. "Ben. Ben." He startled and turned around, but no one was there. He felt a cold hand touch his shoulder. He quickly spun around and was horrified to see the ghostly figure of the girl in the white dress standing right behind him. Her sad eyes were now filled with a chilling intensity. She raised her hand again, pointing towards a specific grave in the cemetery. Ben trembled as he walked towards the grave the girl had indicated. The inscription on the headstone read, "Thomas Evans, 1910 to 1915. Victim of a tragic accident." Below it was a smaller inscription, "We will never forget you." Ben suddenly understood. The girl Sarah and the boy Thomas had died in the same year. He recalled stories he had vaguely heard from locals about a terrible accident that had occurred at this farm in the early 20th century. When a wagon carrying maple syrup had overturned, claiming the lives of 2 children. Suddenly, Sarah raised her hand and pointed towards a large maple tree in the corner of the cemetery. A tree that looked very similar to the one where he had first seen her. He followed the direction of her hand and was horrified to see a large S and a T carved into the trunk. He suddenly remembered that the first letters of Sarah and Thomas's names had been carved into the very tree where he had met the ghostly girl. Sarah looked at him with sad eyes, then slowly faded into the air. Ben stood frozen, feeling a profound sense of terror. He quickly ran out of the cemetery. Not daring to look back, he sprinted towards the bustling festival area, trying to immerse himself in the crowd to dispel the horrifying images and emotions he had just experienced. He knew he would never forget his strange encounter with the ghost girl in the white dress under the maple tree at that year's Maple Weekends festival. Story 2. White figure at the mountain foot. Jessica, whose real name was Ashley, went with her group of friends to the Bristol Mountain Spring Carnival in the Finger Lakes region of New York in April 2019. The carnival was in full swing with thrilling rides, tempting food stalls, and lively music. Jessica and her friends had a fun day, trying out one ride after another. As night began to fall, Jessica got separated from her group in the crowd that was rushing towards the main stage area to watch the fireworks. She decided to wander off alone towards the edge of the carnival grounds, where a wooded slope offered a much quieter space. As she passed a large oak tree, she suddenly saw a young girl in a white dress standing silently at the base of the tree. The girl looked about 10 years old, with long black hair flowing down her shoulders, and her white dress seemed a bit old-fashioned, amidst the brightly colored carnival attire of the other attendees. She looked truly out of place. Jessica approached, intending to ask if the girl was lost. As she got closer, she called out softly, "Hello?" The girl didn't respond, just stood still with her back to Jessica. Jessica noticed the girl's white dress seemed slightly damp at the hem, even though the weather that day was very dry. A strange feeling flickered in Jessica's heart. She reached out, intending to gently touch the girl's shoulder, but her hand passed right through the girl effortlessly. Jessica recoiled in shock, a cold fear spreading through her body. The girl slowly turned around. Her face was pale, her vacant eyes staring straight at Jessica. The expression on her face was one of deep sadness and despair. Jessica tried to speak, but her throat tightened. The ghostly girl gently raised a thin, pale finger and pointed towards the dense wooded slope behind her. Jessica felt an icy chill and an overwhelming sense of dread. She took a few steps back, trying to escape this terrifying presence. She rushed back towards the main carnival area, desperately searching for her friends. When she found them, she tried to recount what she had just seen, but they initially dismissed it as her imagination or the excitement of the carnival atmosphere. However, Jessica remained deeply unsettled and couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She remembered hearing local stories about accidents that had happened on the ski slopes in the past. Later that evening, as the carnival lights began to dim, Jessica and her friends decided to take one last ride on the Ferris wheel. As they reached the highest point, Jessica looked down towards the wooded slope where she had seen the girl. She saw the faint figure of the girl in the white dress still standing near the same oak tree. this time looking directly at her with an expression of intense sorrow. Suddenly, Jessica noticed something else, a faint, flickering light moving through the trees behind the girl, and she heard a faint, muffled scream carried on the night air. The scream sounded like a child in fear. Jessica felt her heart skip a beat. She suddenly realized that the ghostly girl she had encountered was perhaps the spirit of a victim. Someone who had suffered a tragic accident at Bristol Mountain. Perhaps she was still lingering there, forever trapped between the world of the living and the dead. As the Ferris wheel slowly descended, Jessica couldn't take her eyes off the wooded slope. The figure of the girl in the white dress remained there, at the base of the oak tree, like a chilling reminder of the tragedies that might lie hidden beneath the serene beauty of this mountain. Jessica and her friends left the carnival with an indescribable unease. Jessica knew that the image of the girl in the white dress by the tree would forever haunt her. A terrifying memory of a spring night at Bristol Mountain. Story 3. White dress amidst the blooms. Michael, whose real name was Kevin, a young photographer, attended the Water Drinker Tulip Festival in Manorville, Long Island, New York, in late spring of 2021. He wanted to capture the vibrant beauty of the endless tulip fields. The festival was a riot of color and fragrance, with thousands of tulips in every imaginable hue blooming under the sun. Visitors flocked to the farm, eager to capture the stunning scenery. Michael wandered away from the main festival area, looking for a unique angle or a less crowded spot to take photos. He found himself in a quieter section of the farm, where a few large, solitary trees stood beside a vast tulip field. He noticed an elderly woman in a long white dress standing silently at the base of a particularly large and ancient-looking oak tree. Amidst the casually dressed festival attendees, the old woman looked strikingly out of place. Michael approached, thinking she might need assistance or that she could be an interesting subject for his photograph. The woman was facing away from him, seemingly gazing out over the tulip fields. As he got closer, Michael called out gently, "Excuse me, ma'am?" The woman didn't reply, nor did she turn around. Michael noticed her white dress looked very old-fashioned and appeared slightly translucent in the bright sunlight. He got even closer, intending to offer help, and noticed her long, thin gray hair partially obscured her face. He called out again, a little louder this time. "Ma'am, are you all right?" The old woman slowly turned around, revealing a face that was both very old and very pale, with deep-set, dark eyes that seemed to hold immense sadness. Her expression was unsettling. He tried to speak, but a sudden wave of nausea and dizziness washed over him. The air around the woman seemed to grow colder. The old woman slowly raised a trembling, bony hand and pointed towards a specific section of the tulip field, where the flowers seemed to stand unnaturally still despite a gentle breeze. Michael felt an overwhelming sense of dread and took a step back. The old woman's eyes seemed to pierce right through him. He tried to ask her if she was all right, but she let out a soft, mournful sigh that sounded like the rustling of dry leaves. Suddenly, the old woman's form began to flicker and fade, becoming more and more transparent until she completely vanished before his eyes. Michael stood frozen, feeling utterly bewildered. He looked towards the section of the tulip field the old woman had pointed to and noticed that the tulips there were a deep, almost blackish red, unlike the other vibrant colors. He felt an intense chill despite the warm spring day. He asked a nearby local about the old woman, and the person told him an old legend about a woman who had died tragically on the farm many years ago. And she was often seen wearing a white dress. The description vaguely matched the woman he had encountered. Later, Michael researched the history of the farm and discovered that in the 1930s, a woman named Eleanor, whose real name was Beatrice, had taken her own life by throwing herself into the tulip fields after losing her only child. The section of the field the ghostly old woman had pointed to was the very spot where Eleanor had ended her life. It was said that her tormented spirit still lingered there, forever searching for her lost child. The deep red tulips in that area were believed to symbolize her blood and sorrow. Michael left the festival with a profound sense of unease. The image of the old woman in the white dress by the tree and the ominous dark red tulips forever etched in his memory. If you want to hear more true horror stories, don't forget to subscribe to my channel.